It didn't begin with a prophecy. It didn't begin with a bridge. It didn't even begin with something flying overhead. It began with 4 people in a car on a dark road near an abandoned military site, looking at something they could not explain, and the detail they remembered most was the eyes. Large, red, glowing.
And that one detail matters, because fear does something strange to our attention. It narrows it. It pulls the mind toward whatever feels most dangerous. And once the mind locks onto that threat, everything around it can become harder to judge.
Tonight, we begin the story of the Mothman, not with what it became, but with what they saw first. Hi, my name is Joseph. I study cryptids, the legends, the sightings, and the strange stories that refuse to disappear.
And I'm Igor. I'm a psychology professor at IU South Bend. I study how the human mind reacts when reality doesn't behave the way it should.
And this is Monsters and the Mind. November 15th, 1966, Point Pleasant, West Virginia. 2 young couples, Roger and Linda Scarberry and Steve and Mary Mallett, are driving near a place locals called the TNT area. It was an abandoned World War II munitions site. Old bunkers, empty roads, concrete structures. Overgrown land, a place already carrying the feeling of something hidden.
Some settings do psychological work before anything happens. A bright street in the middle of town feels one way. An abandoned munitions site at night feels very different. In that situation, the mind is alert, always scanning, always asking, is something here?
And then they see it. A large figure near the road, not flying at first, merely standing. They described it as man-sized, maybe even taller, with wings. But the feature that burns itself into the story is not just the wings. It's those red eyes. Red eyes glowing in the headlights, watching.
That is the moment the story becomes personal. A strange shape in the dark is frightening, but eyes suggest attention. Eyes make it feel like the thing has noticed you. Now the question is not just, what is that? It becomes, what does it want?
The couples drive away, but according to their account, the creature moves. It spreads its wings. It follows the car. They say it keeps pace. They say it follows them toward town. Some versions of the story describe a strange sound, high-pitched, almost mechanical. And they do what most of us do. They don't stop. They don't investigate. They flee.
And that changes everything. In a calm state, perception is one thing. In fear, perception is something else. The body prepares for survival. Heart rate increases, muscles tense, attention narrows. Your mind starts prioritizing the most important question. Where is the threat?
And in this story, the threat had red eyes.
And that's the key. That's why the red eyes matter so much. In the psychological study of eyewitnesses, there's a classic finding called the weapon focus effect. One of the most famous studies on this was done by Elizabeth Loftus, Jeffrey Loftus, and Jane Meso in 1987. The study was called Some Facts About Weapon Focus, and the setup was simple. Participants viewed a series of images showing an event in a fast food restaurant. In one version, a customer walked up to the cashier and handed over a check. In another version, the same basic scene happened, but instead of holding a check, the customer pointed a gun. Same type of setting, same basic event, but one detail changed. A neutral object became a threatening object.
So a check became a weapon.
Right. And the researchers wanted to know what that weapon did to attention and memory. So in one part of the study, they tracked where people looked, and people looked at the gun more than they looked at the check. Not just a little. They made more eye fixations on the weapon And those fixations lasted longer. The weapon pulled their attention.
Because it was dangerous.
Yes, and here's why that matters. People in the weapon condition had poorer memory for other details than people in the check condition. So the weapon didn't just add fear to the scene, it changed what people processed. The mind locked onto the threat, and the rest of the scene became weaker. That is the weapon focus effect. When something threatening appears, attention narrows towards the threat. In a crime, that might be a gun or a knife. The witness may remember the weapon vividly, but they may be less accurate about the person holding it, the face, the clothing, the background, the distance, the timing, the surroundings. Not because the witness is lying, not because the witness is careless, but because attention has limits. The mind cannot process everything equally, especially under fear.
So the fear acts like a spotlight.
Exactly. That's a really good way to think about it. Fear creates a spotlight. Whatever falls inside the spotlight becomes vivid. Whatever falls outside the spotlight becomes blurry. And that is the important point. Fear does not simply make memory better. Fear does not simply make memory worse. Fear makes memory selective.
So it saves what feels most important.
Right. And in a dangerous situation, the mind often decides that the most important thing is the threat.
So what does a study about a gun in a fast food restaurant have to do with the Mothman?
Well, in the Mothman story, there is no gun, but there is a threat signal, the red eyes. The witnesses are on a dark road. They are near an abandoned military site. They see a large, unfamiliar figure. They believe it follows them. Their bodies are reacting as if they are in danger. And in that moment, the red eyes may become the center of attention. Those red eyes become the weapon.
But not literally.
No, not literally, but psychologically. The eyes are the detail that says, this thing sees us. This thing knows we are here. This thing may be coming after us. So attention locks on. And once attention locks on, the other details become harder to judge. How tall was it? How far away was it? How wide were the wings? Was it flying, gliding, hopping, running? Or was it being distorted by the headlights in motion? How fast was the car moving? How fast was the creature moving? These are hard questions under calm conditions. Now add darkness, add fear, add speed, headlights, a strange setting, and the feeling that something impossible is chasing you.
So, does this mean nothing was there?
No. And that is important. The weapon focus effect does not prove the Mothman was fake. It does not prove the witnesses were wrong. It does not prove they imagined the whole thing. It simply gives us a way of understanding how one terrifying detail can dominate an experience. They may have seen an animal, they may have seen a large bird, they may have seen a person, or they may have seen something no ordinary explanation fully captures. But whatever they saw, fear would shape how they saw it, and importantly, how they remembered it.
So, the red eyes are more than a description. They're the emotional center of this story.
And that's what makes this so interesting. The eyes are what the mind keeps returning to, because in the dark, wings are frightening. A chase is terrifying, but eyes mean something else. Eyes mean that you are not just seeing the monster is seeing you.
That may be why the red eyes became the signature of the Mothman. The wings matter. The chase matters. The TNT area matters. But the eyes are the detail that follows the legend everywhere. Glowing, red, unblinking, impossible to forget.
Because the mind remembers emotionally charged details differently. Not always more accurately, but more powerfully. A terrifying detail can feel sharper than the rest of the memory. And because it feels sharp, we may assume the whole memory is equally clear.
But it may not be.
Right. The center of the memory might feel vivid, the edges may be reconstructed. This is true for ordinary memories. It is especially true for frightening ones.
And Mothman is certainly not an ordinary memory.
No, it is a fear memory, a night memory, a chase memory, a story told and retold because the people who lived it could not simply file it away as something normal. So here is the mind's measure. When fear takes over, attention narrows. The mind does not treat every detail equally. It grabs the detail that feels most threatening and then builds the memory around it. In the weapon focus study, the detail was a gun. In Point Pleasant, the detail was the red eyes. The red eyes became the center of the spotlight. And once something is inside that attention spotlight, it can feel impossible to forget. But the question is not just whether the witnesses remembered the eyes. The question is what happened to everything outside of the eyes? The distance, the size, the speed, the shape, the wings, the road, the dark. So here is something to think about. Think about a time when something startled or scared you. What detail did your mind grab first? Was it a sound? Was it a face? A movement? A shadow? And later, when you retold the story, were you remembering the whole scene? Or were you remembering the part your fear decided mattered the most? Because sometimes the monster is not only what stands in the dark, sometimes it's what the mind spotlights and what it leaves in the shadow.
The couples escaped the TNT area. They reached town. They told their story, and by the next day, Point Pleasant had a new fear, a winged figure, a dark road, and red eyes that would not fade away.
But one terrifying sighting does not become a legend by staying alone. It becomes a legend when other people hear the story and begin looking into the dark differently.
Next time, the Mothman leaves the road and enters the town.
And we ask what happens when one frightening sighting becomes a shared reality.
I'm Joseph.
And I'm Igor, and this has been Monsters in the Mind.
Until next time, watch the shadows. Trust your fear just enough to survive it. Question it just enough to understand it, and always keep it creepy and watch out for those red eyes.